lifting the voices of those that have been so, you know, horribly impacted by what has taken place. And I thought that, you know, this is the space for that, and not so much talking about the good things about the Burlington Police Department. So that is why I proposed that amendment. Very happy to talk offline with folks about that as well. But yeah, those are just a few things. We have a lot. I can talk about the budget and other things like that, but I think we're all gonna maybe dive into that together in just a few minutes. So that's what I have for right now.
And I'll just say, if anyone has any questions watching, do the same method of raising your hand. I'll put you in the queue, and then when all of the counselors are done speaking, we can start going through that.
Thanks, Hannah. Okay, thank you, Jane. Jack, do you want to go next?
Zoraya, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'm happy to go. I'm also happy to be quick so that we can get to people's questions. Yeah, so a few things, also addressing the comments that were made. Yeah, a huge thank you to Nancy. I also met with Cindy Wright, and she told me Nancy was basically mowing the cemetery by herself. And I know a few people also came and cleaned gravestones. So thanks to all the folks in the neighborhood and outside of it who are trying to make the cemetery a little nicer. Riverside Ave, there's 3 different projects that are like in some form of planning on Riverside Ave. One kind of down the hill where the current car shops are, which I think is the furthest in terms of process to being developed. And then there's one closer to where I live on Hildred Drive. I think that still needs some more public review. And then the one that I think you said Nancy brought up, which is between the car wash and the treatment plant, is like in the like lowest stages of development. So as far as I know, they haven't moved forward on much of anything. They haven't even done their first public process, or so I think that's where those are, but I haven't honestly checked in a few weeks. And then just in terms of updates from the council, I had an update on where the budget was in terms of like which budgets have gone up, which have gone down, and some of the changes. I'm happy to talk about that, but I get the feeling that it's going to change a lot by the time we see it again. So we don't exactly know where it's going to be, but I'm happy to give an update on where it was the last time we saw it. Then I guess the last thing I want to talk about is, because I'm on the CD&R committee and Jack and Jane aren't, is we just previously looked at 2 things. One of them was the Housing Board of Review, and we got some testimony from how that's currently working and some things that others maybe want them to do. And I'm not 100% sure where the committee as a whole is on that, but I'm kind of excited to potentially work on exploring some avenues to having the Housing Board of Review be an avenue for tenants to find relief for things other than just deposits, as kind of like a low cost legal system that they have access to. And then the other thing that we're planning on looking at in the future as a committee is just cause evictions and what that looks like in Burlington and for Burlington. And those are kind of my big updates. And I'll pass it on to Jack.
Thanks, Zoraya.
Okay, great. There's so much going on right now. When I look back at the meeting from May 18th, it seems like so long ago. I could barely even remember what we looked at, but I'm looking back at my own council update and looking at that. A couple things that weren't mentioned from that meeting. So I brought a resolution. It was, we didn't really discuss it at that meeting because there were so many other things on the agenda and it was a 6-hour meeting, but it started the ball rolling on decarbonizing building stock in Burlington, starting with new development. So over the course of the next 90 days from that point, so probably the next 60 days or so, or a little more, there's going to be a few public hearings and draft development of ordinance around that to like I said, initially regulate new construction in terms of heating systems and appliances in buildings and getting off of fossil fuels. And then over time as well, developing policy around existing buildings. And this kind of complements the weatherization efforts that are also still underway that I've been working on for about a year and a half. So making buildings efficient, but also getting them off of fossil fuels is this other step that was initiated at that meeting. We also continued the Champlain Parkway project, and specifically it's moving into a realm of environmental justice review. So looking at the impacted neighborhood and reviewing that. It's going to be coming to the Transportation Energy Utilities Committee. We got to hear from UVM and from permitting inspections a bit about the move-in efforts, and I'm sure UVM is here if we want to get more into that. So those are a couple of things from that meeting. And then the more recent meeting, we heard from the union, the AFSCME local union, which represents a lot of our city employees, talking about their concerns with the budget. And I'll talk about that in a second. But we had these charter changes, these charter change resolutions brought by Councilor Freeman that include some pretty major reforms around taxation and around the workers' rights and compensation. We postponed action on those for the time being. But yeah, it includes other ways of taxation beyond just the current property tax and rooms and meals tax, and taxation that would specifically target folks with higher property values or higher incomes in the city, looking at minimum wage, looking at just cause employment, just cause evictions. But again, yeah, we've delayed action on that for the time being. And they're all charter changes, so they would all go through a long process that would include a citywide vote as well. So that was one. We referred to committee. So you'll notice a lot of changes in the streets right now in Burlington around streets opening up, about parking being converted to bike lanes, or streets being closed to anything, closed to through traffic, things like that. One other thing we're doing is there's going to be some full street closures downtown periodically to kind of open up streets to pedestrians, to outdoor seating, things like that. And this is a way to help people still attend events or go to local restaurants, but still social distance. So I think it's a reimagining of public space that we're kind of fast tracking during the pandemic to allow easier use of parking spaces and the parking spaces for parklets, but also the street on occasion when we can open that up and shut down vehicle traffic. So that'll be kind of happening. We'll see more businesses taking advantage of that. And then the budget I'll just speak to, and then I want to speak on racial justice issues and policing issues real quick. I don't think I've used up my 5 yet. The budget, Zoraya made a good point. It's still changing. Normally this meeting coming up on Monday, normally we would vote on it and approve it at that meeting. I don't think that that's going to happen. I really don't think the budget is going to be in a place where we vote on it on Monday. I think we're going to defer action to the final meeting in June. We are supposed to or required to pass a budget by the end of the month, though, so we would need to act at that next meeting on the 29th. So far, just from a high level with the budget, initially there were, the mayor was discussing layoffs. That is somewhat off the table, at least in terms of the proposed budget now, does not include any layoffs. But it does include removal of dozens of temporary positions, including Parks and Rec and DPW and other things like that. So we'll see how it evolves. The mayor is planning to bring a new version of it probably on Monday. So I think it's a good point from Zoraya that, you know, we could get really into the weeds, but it's going to change a lot. So I don't know how useful it is. But I'm happy to talk to it from a high level if people are interested. The issue, I mean, I feel that we're really in a watershed moment right now nationally, and I'm sure many of you have been following this around policing and around racial justice. And I think Burlington is definitely part of that and experiencing that. We saw the largest turnout. I can't say ever, I haven't been around long enough, but the mayor said that it was definitely the largest during his time. And this was at a Board of Finance meeting, not even a city council meeting. There were 250 people that spoke. I think all but maybe 2 of them were calling on defunding the police department, basically reducing uniformed officers by 30%, removing police officers from the schools and not using police officers for truancy calls, and investing more greatly in so we have a diversity, equity, and equity, inclusion, and belonging, I believe is the title. For that, Taisha Green is a city employee that started a couple of months ago, but they were calling on expanding that capacity in that office, bringing on potentially an additional staff member and bringing more resources to that role in city government, including business development for minority-owned businesses as part of it as well. So there was a very specific set of demands that essentially every single speaker on Monday had spoke to and called in solidarity for. And maybe I'm missing 1 or 2 of the demands, but those were some of the key ones. Then there was a police commission last night that also had I think 5.5. It wasn't quite as long, but I think it had around close to 5 hours of public comment and well over 100 speakers raising similar demands as well. So it's really a watershed moment. And I think the council meeting on Monday, I don't even know what to expect, but I think that's really on everyone's mind, and I'm glad that it is. I think we need tremendous reform, and it's taken way too long, but I think now is the moment. And so that's really on my mind as we enter into the budget discussion.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
Hannah, do we have people with questions?
No one has raised their hand yet, but I have a question. I was just wondering what, like, as counselors, what type of outreach you all have been doing, and kind of if you've gotten any feedback from students moving in to the neighborhoods, because we know June 1st was a really kind of big move-in day for most people. So, like, were you able to reach out to anyone? Have you heard anything? Yeah.
Happy to go, or if someone else wants to go first.
Go ahead, Jack. I can follow up.
The biggest thing that I've been trying to promote to folks that I think is really one of the most important aspects of this, and something that everyone should do, is taking advantage of the free testing that we have. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. You don't need a prior appointment. And one of the best ways we can box this thing in is really getting everyone to do that, especially folks that are coming in from out of state. So there's a setup at Waterman, in the Waterman parking lot, and there's a setup at the Old North End Community Center, I believe, is the other location, every day this week. So that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to push out there. Yeah, I'll let others speak to other things, but I think that is one of the most critical things that I want to be making sure that all students are doing.
And yeah, I don't think we've, I think, taken as much action on this as we could have, really, any of the counselors, given like the moment that we're in and just how occupied the past 2 weeks have been with movement on other things. But yeah, totally echo Jack's thing on getting testing. It's, I think, going to be harder than we thought it was, both like also moving forward. The nice thing is it does seem, I mean, I've gotten some emails from people saying that it does feel like it's been much more spread out this time in terms of move in and move out. We are starting to have conversations about like congregation and what that looks like with UVM students. That's really the only outreach that I've had and how policing fits into that. Yeah, so, but I think there's some more work that we need to do with UVM in terms of talking about how they're norming, which I know we talked about last time, but I think we could do some follow-up work on.
Did we lose Jane? Did Jane drop off?
I think that she did. If she joins back on, I'll just let her speak to any of the questions. I don't see any other hands raised other than Karen's and Jonathan's.
Great. So I have a question. I actually wrote our counselors this, but they didn't cover it in their little update. I watched Moreau's what was it called? Press conference. I think it was Tuesday at 2. And my questions are, he mentioned this $10,000 monthly payment that City Place has been responsible for many months. And I know last year they were behind and Moreau wrote a letter and they were supposedly then gonna like pay up, and the next 3 months, you know, we were behind, I think 3 months. But I'm wondering, are we caught up now? So that's one question. And Moreau said that this payment is going to stop the end of June, which is this month. So I'm wondering why they're stopping. And so maybe answer those first. We only have a few more minutes. So does anyone know those answers?
So the $10,000 payments, yeah, that's for Jeff Glassberg, the city's consultant.
Well, and any legal expenses, he said. But
yeah,
it sounds like Moreau is he's got another, stern letter to the developer, like they need to do these things. And so the money was in the last letter, and it sounds like he's giving them another deadline. And then the other thing is getting back our right of way on Bank and Cherry, because we don't have sidewalks and we don't have the parking that we used to have. And, I'm not sure why that didn't get corrected last year when they were told to do that, but it's another year, and it's summer, and I'm just wondering, do you know what is happening with that?
Yeah, to some extent. I forwarded you an email, Karen, which is Brookfield's response to Moreau's letter is attached, and it goes through 5 different commitments that they're making. In terms of Bank and Cherry, what they've said there is that they've engaged Kevin Warden of Engineering Ventures to develop a right-of-way restoration plan, and will work with the DPW to have an approved restoration plan by June 30th. That's their commitment on that. And what was your other? So for Jeff Glassberg, they've only committed thus far to paying for that through June. So they haven't, I believe they are all caught up, but they haven't committed to going beyond this month. So that's one of the areas that I think the mayor is pushing them on.
Okay.
Is to continue that
commitment. And, at the press conference, and I didn't seem easy to call in with questions. Maybe I could have asked him, but the mayor said again that because the developer is paying this $10,000, it's not costing the taxpayers. But I really disagree with that. We have lost hundreds of thousands of tax dollars because the developer is now paying property taxes on the whole in the center of downtown, whereas before they paid taxes on the mall that we had. So, I hope this gets all settled up and they start building. I was bummed they couldn't start in the spring, but it is costing us a lot of money and a lot of goodwill for people that would like to park on those streets, walk on those streets, and just be downtown. I think that COVID-19 has been bad, but don't forget, like just 2 months before, 3 months before, we still had problems downtown because of the hole in the ground. And I mean, I'm just frustrated that we're even letting them, I think the next deadline is August. And I think the deadline should have been March or, February or something. But anyway, thank you. Thanks. I'll read the letter.
No, I agree, Karen. I think we could, I've always advocated that we take a firmer approach with them, but there hasn't been, I guess, enough of us advocating for that to get the mayor to do that. But when he has done that, it has yielded results. So I hope that he'll do it more, because clearly that's what has tended to work. There'll be like 5 months of nothing. And then when he puts a strongly worded letter, they immediately concede and do stuff. And then, but why do we then wait another 5 months before we do that again is my question. So I'll continue to push, but yeah, they're coming to council, I think, in August. I think that's right.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with you, yeah.
We are now, thank you, councilors. That was a great update. We are now going to move on to the school commissioners. I see Aden is with us, Aden.
Yeah, I'm now going to put
But
them
I
out.
don't know about Kathy. Oh, well.
Great. I just wanted to flag that Earhart did have his hand up. I don't know if that's old or.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. I didn't see that.
Okay, let me 1 minute. I need to just okay. Earhart, you can talk now. You should be able to.
I did have my hand up. Thanks, Zoraya. Jack or Zoraya, you guys may have covered this, but on the police, the 30% cut, I know you mentioned investing some of that money in minority-owned businesses. Is some of that also geared to like hiring social workers and folks to do like alternative, calls? Because I mean, the police get called on. Part of the problem also is that they get called on what I would call mental health calls, or folks, that are having a crisis. And we have one horrific incident where someone in South Square was killed, and who was undergoing a mental health crisis. So I don't know, maybe you said this and I missed it, but is it your understanding that that's part of the proposal, is to sort of substitute, instead of a police officer going to that kind of a call, that at least in first line, it would be a mental health worker that responded, that was maybe, even better than, better on de-escalation and able to answer someone in crisis?
Yeah, I don't know if this is an instead of so much as, so definitely yes. So funding, channeling some of those funds to social workers, community workers. But in terms of like the responding, I don't know if we're expecting social workers to respond to those calls instead of. I think sometimes we're hoping like in partnership with, yeah. But yes, I think that is the understanding.
That's what I meant too. It would be in collaboration with, and they'd be the first line responder. And if there was,
I totally agree with that, Earhart. And I think that's a lot of this discussion is like, we in Burlington and in a lot of places, like we rely on police officers to play so many different roles that they aren't the best equipped to play. Like we have folks that are more equipped to play some of those roles. So I totally agree with that. And I think that's a big part of the discussion. We haven't seen, just to be clear though, these are calls from, the community and from some of us on the council who agree with that. But the mayor hasn't it's the mayor's budget to bring to us, and he has not yet incorporated that. He did indicate a little bit in a press release today. He didn't make any indication about reducing funding for the police department. He did make an indication about increased funding for racial justice work from the city. So we'll see. That budget, again, is probably coming on Monday from the mayor. So we'll see to what extent he's going to actually incorporate these things that we're talking about. But then it will be in the council's hand after he puts it to us. So we'll have the opportunity to propose changes to the budget.
Thanks for that. And just a very brief follow-up. Have you guys seen, I know a couple of years ago, it was, some attention was paid to the whole militarization of the police department, and they actually turned down surplus equipment from Iraq. I'm just wondering if you guys as councilors and being more close to this discussion have seen any evidence, any evidence of some kind of resurgence in Burlington police of, accepting military type equipment.
So
You
you're
go,
me.
Zara.
I haven't, so admittedly, I haven't gone back. There's no, as far as I know, there's no resurgence. There were some like taser replacements in the budget for this year. I think the thing that's more is I think the Burlington Police Department has been good about this. I'm not sure that that's been true of the Vermont police, which of course we're ready to aid the Burlington Police Department in instances like the protest a few weekends ago. So
Yeah, it was either the police chief or the city, the CF, like I'm blanking on the name, Catherine Shad, the CAO for the city. It was either Catherine or the police chief, Morrison, that recently said in an email that they haven't accepted any military equipment in a number of years and still are totally committed to that and have severed ties around that. So yeah, that was a recent confirmation that they are not doing that. But Zoraya raises a good point about the state police.
And I'm sure it's, I don't know what it's like for South Burlington and Colchester. There's, they get called in to aid in certain situations too. So thanks, guys.
Right. Thank you, Erhard.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are a little behind, but we're okay. And I'd like to move on to the school board, please. So Hannah, if you could free up.
They should be on the screen and ready to go.
Thank you.
I can go first. My name is Aden, and I'm glad to be here today. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm just gonna give a quick update for the school district. So some of the conversations that have been going on have been regarding the transition for the superintendents, and we have Yao for the remainder of June, and then Tom Flanagan is going to take over as superintendent, and he first joined the meeting yesterday and made his statement. So we're looking forward to collaborating with him. And then another thing that's been going on is the support for multilingual liaisons and the hard work that they have been engaged with during the pandemic, being able to assist families that and bridge families from different cultures within the school district, which is very important. They had a celebration for them, I believe, last week. And there's also conversations on whether or not some of those multilingual liaisons are going to be working this summer for the school district, which brings me to my next point. There are going to be summer programs, but it's going to be limited for students, and there's going to be public health restrictions on some of those programs. I'm sure there's going to be more information coming out soon. So when I do get more information, I'll be more than happy to share out, or you can reach back out to me in my email, which is Haji at bstvt.org. So, and then there was an article from the Vermont Digger that just went out today saying that schools are going to be opening in Vermont during the fall. But again, there's going to be some procedures for students and teachers. And I would also echo what Jack said earlier about the testing for families in the area and students as well. I also got tested myself yesterday, and I was impressed by the amount of interpreters that they had from AALV, which is really important for those families. I think they have like 6 or 7 interpreters from different languages. So it was good for community members to have that resource. And I think for me this summer, I just plan to figure out how kids can be more engaged within programs this summer, and because they've been inside this whole time, especially while practicing social distancing. So that's all I have for now. I don't know if Kathy would want to jump in, but if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to email me.
Thank you. Kathy,
Sure.
are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
Okay. Well, I could just give you a little more information about summer. I talked to the woman that's running the middle school summer programs for Hunt Edmonds, and they are going from June 29th to July 23rd. It will be shorter. It'll be from 9:15 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there won't be groups of kids any more than 10. And they will stay in their pods, as they call them, eating lunch together, not having any place where they're all of them together. And it has a pretty wide, in the mornings, most of it is academics. In the afternoons, it's sports. There are some other programs in the morning that aren't academic, so that those kids that don't need support, academic support, can do other programs in the arts, woodworking, rocketry, sports, cooking, drawing. You know, there's all sorts of things for them. Pretty much it's a little less than they've had in the past, just because they are only going to serve 150 instead of the 300 kids that they have served. And also at the grade school level, there will be summer school. And I think that they said it was at Edmonds this year, but I can't swear to that. But there is a grade school summer school program, academic program going on. And Sarah Holbrook Community Center will run their program again this year, but also again with less space, because they have to keep the social distance and they can't have more than 10 kids in a group. And that's for grade school kids. And that will be I think at St. Joe's, I think they said. No, I'm sorry. It's at SA. That's right. It's at SA this year again. And there is an ESL program also going on in the schools and at Sarah Holbrook as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public? Any hands?
I don't see any, so I think we can move on.
Thank you, school commissioners. Okay, so we would have Joe with us now. I saw his name from Lake Monsters.
Yes, I'm going to add them right now.
It's Joe Doud.
Yep, sorry, it takes a minute to navigate the screen.
That's fine.
Okay, they should be all set.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for having me. And I see that I'm allotted 5 minutes here. And unless there's a lot of questions, I promise I will not get anywhere near 5 minutes. So we'll move right along and get closer to dinner time. So I'd love to have a lot of great, a lot of something announcement wise, but unfortunately I really don't have much still. So basically the 30,000 foot level updated as far as kind of how we operate is Major League Baseball currently is in ongoing negotiations between essentially the ownership of Major League Baseball teams and the Players Association, which makes up the union of players. They're still debating what their season is going to look like as far as how many games and where they're going to play. And there's a lot of different variables and possible ideas and solutions thrown out in those meetings. So what we're essentially waiting on is the conclusion and the ultimate results of those meetings. And then once that's determined, then we'll have a better idea of what our summer and season will look like. Currently, we really have no information. We haven't heard anything from anybody. We've been told several times that something would be coming down the pipeline, and it hasn't happened quite yet. We're supposed to open on June 18th, which is a week from tomorrow. We announced officially today that, just given the current negotiations and the schedule and whatnot, we do not expect to open on time. With that being said, we really don't know at all what the season will look like, if there is a season. We don't know if say, hypothetically, the season were to start July 15th, if we would pick up our already scheduled season on July 15th and just play, a shortened season. If it maybe would be, perhaps prolonged into the fall a bit, maybe it would be entirely redone with a different number of games. We really have no idea. It really comes down to what Major League Baseball wants to do, and ultimately if they want to have minor league baseball going or not. So that's really the update that I have. Unfortunately, I don't know anything. Certainly, as we do know more, we'll definitely be in touch with everybody that we can. And if anybody has questions of us, we're certainly more than happy to help. Our offices down on King Street, they're not currently open to the public, but we're certainly available online, and we're selling some merchandise online and whatnot too. So if people want to support your hometown team, you still can, for sure.
Thank you. Sorry, it wasn't like, oh, you're opening June 18th, but keep us posted.
We will, for sure.
Okay. Are there any hands out with questions?
I don't see any questions now.
Okay. Thank you,
you.
Joe.
Thanks for having me.
We can go on now to UVM. I believe we have Joe Speidel and Gail.
Yes. So Gail and Joe, you should be all set. You'll be able to see on your screen, Gail, the share screen function, and that will help you bring up your slides.
Thanks, Hannah.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Okay, could everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting Joe and myself to your meeting tonight. And also want to say that I know there's a lot of pain out there in the community. So I've been thinking of everyone, and especially our Black and brown neighbors and family members and community members and colleagues. And wishing the best for us as we move through all of what we're going through now. So I want to tell you just briefly about our office. And can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can't see both you and the PowerPoint, so. So for our office, we help students transition to off-campus living, and then once they're off campus, we provide them support and resources. We also identify and act on issues facing off-campus students and our student neighbor relations. We also work a lot to develop community in the neighborhoods in the hopes that we can foster dialogue as a way of addressing issues. And we provide some neighborhood grants for funding to do projects that the neighbors and students, both students and non-students in the community, want to see and also they benefit from. And then we help to resolve conflicts restoratively. So I wanted to sort of give a little bit of background before Joe talks about fall planning at the university. And since March, when the university went virtual, we've been trying to use surveying as a way to get the student voice into the conversation and also to learn like what's going on off campus. So what I'll speak about is the off campus world. There's someone else at UVM who addresses on campus, and that might be a future meeting that you might be interested in talking about for fall opening. So for the next slide, we did a survey in March, and the 4 important things we learned. We had 1,549 students take the survey, and of that 65% were undergraduates. And then 1,517 students were currently living in their off-campus rental at that time. 614 of them said they lived with other UVM students, and 845 students said they would be living in their rental for the rest of the semester. So that gave us some kind of an idea of who was living in Burlington. What I think was really important was to people to understand that it wasn't an easy decision for our students of whether they stayed in Burlington or they went home. So I just wanted to share one of the comments a student made on the survey. I feel safer in my off-campus rental because I only live with one other student rather than going home and living with my family of 4. Allows me to have my own routine and avoid potentially infecting others, as I am an essential worker and can't stay home. And we got a lot of responses about the difficulty of making this decision. And then the other thing we wanted to know was what were their needs, because I understood that many of our students lost jobs. They didn't have internships. Their families might have lost jobs. So what we did find out is that 42% of them were having trouble paying for food. 42% were having trouble paying rent, 37% for utilities, and then 34% other financial issues. So taking all the information that we learned from that survey, we took some action. And one of the things that we did was we developed a resource sheet to assist students. And we have an off-campus life email newsletter. And instead of sending that out once a month, we're now almost sending it out weekly. And then we also convened a Zoom meeting of the Community Coalition, which is an on and off campus group that many Ward 1 and 8 residents go to. We also have state representatives, city councilors, and we have people who own property in the community, and students, and our office run that Community Coalition. And it's a really good group because we are very action oriented, and we have done a lot of projects in the neighborhoods and know the neighborhoods well, but we also problem solve, and we definitely needed to think about the neighborhoods during the pandemic, and that was really helpful. We also, as an office, educated ourselves. So we went to a lot of webinars, landlord tenant with Vermont tenants and Vermont apartment owners, and just made sure that we were as up to date as we could be so that we could provide support to our students. Around the food insecurity, we have our Rally Cats covered on campus, and now we decided to keep it open all summer long. We also did a door-to-door grocery delivery to students in need, so students could sign up and then we would deliver a bag of groceries to them. We also had a live town hall with UVM President Suresh Garamella and our off-campus partners, including Vermont tenants. We are hoping to do some Zoom get-togethers in some of the neighborhoods we work in, so we're working on that. And then again, went into hyperdrive with our email newsletter. Then we knew that we needed to continue to do the surveying. So we did a second survey, and this was going to be all around move out. So the total number of students were 856, and those currently living in their off-campus rental was 513. And then we learned that the percentage of respondents who are currently living in their off-campus rental who said that they're planning on living in the Burlington area for the lease period starting in June was 68%. And that told us that maybe there isn't going to be a lot of movement in and out of the city for that group of students who are already here, because most of them were planning on moving into a rental in Burlington in June. And then the percentage of respondents who are planning to come to the Burlington area to pack up their belongings was about 101 individuals. One of their major concerns was that they had to vacate their rental before they were able to access their new rental in June. And with the lodging situation, that was something they could do as Vermonters, but it was a hardship for them income-wise. Then the move out and move in actions, to just go over some of those briefly. You'll see over on the newsletter special editions, that's the what I've been mostly communicating as an office, and we get a huge opening percentage, and we also get a lot of clicks in our newsletter, so we know that it's very valuable for students. So for move out, we did an email update to the mayor's office and the city council on May 1st. We did a special move out edition of the off-campus life. We did a Teams event, as I mentioned before, with the president and Vermont tenants. And we did a webinar with the Burlington Resource and Recovery Center. We did a presentation with the director of Code, Bill Ward, on May 18th. And then we did door-to-door flyering in neighborhoods with move out information also in May. And then we had our 2 spring move out events on May 22nd and May 27th, and we filled 6 dumpsters, and students were very, very happy that we were able to have it this year and that they were able to get rid of stuff. So then we did a third survey, and this was a June move-in survey. So the total number of students who responded were 331. 66% of those 276 students who said they'll be living off campus said they're moving to their area rental in June. So we wanted to get idea how much movement there was going to be in June, July, and August. So the bulk of the students were coming in June. 83% of the students said they are not planning to sublet their rental. And that's something different. In the past, our students used to, the subletting was a lot greater because they had jobs elsewhere and they had internships, et cetera. So that's something I want to be paying attention to because that is a difference. 94% of the students said they are aware of Vermont's quarantining orders for people who are coming from out of state to live in Vermont. And then 63% of the students said they made plans with their roommates about quarantining. And those last two figures were very positive for us, that they understood that what the expectations were when they moved back to Vermont and that they had had these conversations. So some of the move-in actions, we did have a communications from our Vice Provost, Annie Stevens, and that went out to rising juniors, seniors, graduate students, and medical students about the June move-in. And it talked about what was expected from the government's orders around COVID, as well as what was going on in the city of Burlington. And then we also had that communication go out to the families of their undergraduates who are moving to Burlington in June, so that families also could have those conversations with their student. And then we did a survey of students with the June lease starts, and we have done FAQ sheets that have gone on both the universities and the city's officials' COVID websites about move-in. And then some of the other actions, we extended funding to the Burlington Police Department for extra neighborhood patrols into the summer. Usually we fund those extra patrols in the spring and the fall during the areas of most activity. And the 3 E's that I think Karen was alluding to earlier with the police department was engagement, education, and enforcement. And to date, no enforcement action had to be taken. We're also revisiting the use of police. So I have been in conversations with the Community Justice Center and some other partners, seeing if there are de-escalation plans for groups other than the police department to intercede when people aren't following the COVID regulations, for example. And then on May 29th, the university sent out a message to all students that Mayor Moreau Weinberger had asked us to, and it was in his box it in strategy. And also something that the students and the families have really appreciated was all of the quarantining support that Burlington is providing. And I've been shared stories with Linda Murphy in the mayor's office about she's doing check-ins with people that are quarantining. And the stories have been wonderful. People are learning new skills. They're taking up yoga. They are exploring new things. They are enjoying time with their pets. And it's a way just to keep in touch. And when there are health and mental health issues, our resources on campus for counseling and psychiatry have been open. So that team has been able to also offer students that information as well. And then now June 10th, presenting at the Ward 1 and 8 Neighborhood Planning Assembly. Some other actions, we just went with the Code Enforcement Office door to door with the city, created a flyer for the quarantining support. We're keeping our eye on how many students are getting tested, and we're doing that to see whether or not we need to up some of our marketing and communication. So this week we're sending out some quarantine stories from those students with their permission. And then we're also sending out more of the testing information in our off-campus life. And I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Joe, unless people want to ask questions now or want to wait till Joe goes. Thank you.
I don't see questions. Joe, you want to go now, please?
Sure. Sure. Can people hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for inviting us to talk at the NPA meeting. I just want to echo, first of all, what Gail said about, how important it is that we're all working together at this time between the pandemic and what's going on with unrest after the murder of George Floyd. I think it's important that we're all taking care of one another. And I appreciate the work that the city has done with us, all the partners in the city, Code Enforcement Billboard, especially the mayor's office and other people, City Council, the work that you're all doing to address these issues. So thank you for that. What I'm going to talk about is, information on planning for fall reopening and give you an idea of the process that we have been undertaking to get ready for that. So the UVM Strong Advisory Committee was created to coordinate that planning effort for the fall semester. Their task is to develop strategies and protocols for a safe return to on-campus operations. And this is being chaired by Vice President for Operations and Public Safety, Gary Durr. They formed 4 working groups with more than 50 representatives, including faculty, staff, and students. They're also working with faculty experts in public health and medicine, the Vermont Department of Health, Governor Phil Scott in the Vermont legislature, and the mayor. Overall, they're guided by a focus on the health and safety of the entire UVM and surrounding communities. And I'll give you an idea of some of the things that they are looking at in terms of measures that they're exploring. They're looking at testing protocols, contact tracing, quarantine and isolation strategies, residence options that reduce density on campus and provide for quarantine facilities if they're necessary. They're looking at revised class schedules. They're looking at a modified campus calendar. They're considering multiple modes of instruction, including enhanced online options. They're looking at ongoing, for staff and faculty, ongoing telework and remote options for some employees. And that's really to ensure that there are lower concentrations of people on campus and to protect the most vulnerable people in particular. And finally, they're looking at having adequate stocks of supplies that are required to reduce the spread of COVID-19. They're also looking at best practices, across the country. They've been in touch with, experts in health, but also people, in other campuses who are looking at similar kinds of actions as they consider reopening in the fall. In addition, student testing and treatment options are going to be coordinated with the Center for Health and Wellbeing on campus, as well as with the Vermont Department of Health. And the committee and its working groups are developing strategies for multiple scenarios. We don't know what's going to happen exactly. What we're looking for is a strong framework of options so that we can look at emerging and evolving needs and meet those needs. And finally, I'll just say that more information should be available soon in the committee's first report, and that's going to be coming out soon. There's a lot of information on our website, uvm.edu. There is a COVID-19 link at the very top. That link might change over to something about reopening in the coming weeks, but that is going to be a source of a lot of information. If you're looking for information, if your constituents are looking, if you're a counselor or someone else who's responding to questions, I think that's a great place to start in terms of that. And that will be updated fairly soon. And finally, I guess I'll just say, someone had mentioned testing. I think testing is really important. I had answered a survey personally about what I thought about COVID-19 and the planning that the state is doing, et cetera, and was asked, was randomly selected, to get tested. So at some point I'll be going in soon to do that. And I think it's really important as we all approach this as a community that we think about doing those kinds of things. It's going to be testing, it's going to be reminding one another when, we are not, following all of the guidelines and recommendations that are made by either the mayor or the governor or sometimes, UVM officials. It's going to be supporting one another when there are difficult things like quarantining. I think that's going to be really, really important as we look at this box-it-in strategy to try to reopen, try to return to as much normality as possible, given health and safety guidelines. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. That's great.
Oh, I see that Lewis has their hand raised, so I'm going to allow them to talk now. Okay.
Is that for me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Louis Siegel. I was wondering, Joe, about any specific measures that have been discussed regarding student activities and sporting events and coordination with the private sector on bars and nightclubs and the kinds of gathering places that in reports that we've heard have been vectors of enhanced viral spread.
Okay. If I think I'm understanding your question, Louis. In terms of things like sporting events, I think that's going to be a decision made by the governor and the mayor. I think I was listening to the governor talk today. I think gatherings where there are lots of people in close proximity, for a long period of time are probably not going to be happening right away. I think the governor and others are working with the health department and the CDC to really understand what's safe to do. And, the next couple of months may tell us more about, what is safe. I think, so it's hard to say what will happen on campus. I think, we have to really be guided by health and safety. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. I know people, really do want to be together. They want to be able to attend events, but I think we're just going to have to be guided by the testing and by the data. Right now, Vermont is doing very well. I think Burlington is doing well in terms of the strategies that we're employing, in terms of distancing, in terms of masks, in terms of testing. I think is going to be a next crucial step probably. And then if and when there are many outbreaks, finding ways to do contact tracing, to do testing, to do quarantining and treatment and all of those things. And looking down the line, I think everyone is hoping that there is better testing, that there is a way to really to develop a vaccine as soon as possible. But in the meantime, I think we need to limit those kinds of gatherings of numbers of people until we really have some better ways to address that and better ways to understand what's going on.
Thank you.
Carol, I see your hand is raised. You have to unmute.
Goes to what you just spoke about, Joe, as well as Gail. And I was really appreciative, Gail, of your understanding of the nuance of how we enforce or work through with one another when we have large groups of people, and who is given the responsibility to work with all of us around that, and know that right now having the local police be part of that team, I think you're probably hearing some heat about that. And it just, from me, it just sounds like you're trying to deal with it in a pretty nuanced and careful way. And I really appreciate that. It sounds like you're listening really carefully, however, to what students how they may react. Because I know there were students who were not happy with any interactions, and that may be true of many of us right now. So it's not really a question. It's just knowing and hoping that it's pretty uppermost in your mind in terms of how we're working together around the enforcement of the guidelines. Thank you.
Carol, do you have another question?
All right. Yeah, I just wondered, Joe, just as the note taker here, I couldn't capture a lot of what you wrote. I mean, what you said. So is much of that, as you said, on the website, or do you have that in another form?
I can send you that, Carol.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I can send you that synopsis, and there will be some more information coming out soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You bet.
And I will say on all of this, just as a note, for like students and permanent residents, I think it's really important that going into the next couple of months, that we like try to have conversations with each other. I've heard from many of my friends that, you know, like a lot of them move into these off-campus houses without any sort of idea of what a noise ordinance is, kind of what that looks like, how do you deal with your landlords, parking on streets, off streets. And I think with everything going on, if permanent residents and students are able to kind of have these conversations and talk with each other about how to best form a relationship for their immediate community on their streets, we'll be much better off as a community overall if we can work together rather than having this very like toxic relationship of neither of us kind of understanding each other. So I just think that's increasingly important when we look at these like police patrols kind of going through, because I think students are uncomfortable with it, but I would say a lot of the permanent residents aren't happy to see more police cars through our neighborhoods. And I think if we're able to have productive conversations, we'll make effective change within the community rather than trying to like fight the same battle separately. So yeah. Joe, you have your own
I just want to emphasize that I think it's really important that people are trying to have conversations, you know, meet their neighbors, talk to one another. That has to be a more comfortable interaction, even if it's a little bit difficult sometimes to go across the street or next door and talk to someone. You know, I think for a lot of people that's going to be more comfortable than other alternatives. So I just want to highlight, I just want to say I agree completely with that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are going to have to keep moving on here. Giving a little...
Yeah, I'm going to add Dave as a panelist now.
Okay. Dave with Colchester Avenue is our next presenter on our agenda. Dave Cawley.
And I see Jane on the other side as an attendee now, Jane Stromberg.
Yeah, I wasn't able to add her as a panelist, but if she raises her hand at all, I'll be able to put her in so she can talk.
Got it.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I know that we're running a little behind, so I'll try to be brief. A few more items on the agenda. I do have a presentation, but and I sent it along. But do I have the ability to share screen as well?
Yes, you do.
Okay, great. So we'll try to go through this fairly quickly. This is about the Colchester Ave safety study that has been underway, started in January or so. And there are some things that have taken place, and it is in a sort of a hold position right now. But the purpose of this update was just to provide some high-level overview of some of the concepts that are being under consideration for this this study. As you may know, that the study is being conducted by the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, along with DPW from Burlington, and a couple of the consultants that are doing the technical work on it. There's an advisory committee, and there has been a couple of changes on the advisory committee. Jack Hanson is now the City Council representative to the advisory committee, as well as Zoraya Hightower is the alternate for the City Council. I should also add that Richard Hilliard was the NPA alternate to me, but he has stepped down from that position. So that position is vacant, and perhaps at a future meeting, we could add someone that would be participating with the advisory committee from this NPA, Ward 1 NPA. The project study area is the length of Colchester Avenue from Prospect down to Barrett Street. And this area has been looked at a lot over the last 10 years because it is a high crash area. I hope you can see some of the numbers there, that pedestrian bike crashes, injuries that have taken place. And there's been, 4 or 5 different studies to show this is an area that needs attention. And the types of attention that it requires is safety at the intersections, improved safety for all the users, more mobility for bicyclists. And we also have to try to manage the parking, that supports the local businesses, employers, and residents. There was a meeting in December in which the community came out and there were comments. These are the types of concerns that people had when we talked about this. Well, the project team and the advisory committee has come up with a purpose, which I think is indicative that this is trying to look at a little bit longer term improvement for this corridor. And, specifically to identify and prioritize the improvements, but really that are in line with the sustainable transportation infrastructure that the city has. And we're really looking to create what's a continuous and connected multimodal corridor. So those are some of the objectives. I'm going to give just a couple of high-level examples of the types of improvements that are being considered. And they really fall into two categories. One is if you stay within the existing curbs on Colchester Avenue, there's certain things that you can do. And then if you expand out to the right-of-way, the city right-of-way, which would include the green belt, the sidewalk, and in some cases, a little area beyond that, you have different options that you can look at to try to help improve the safety. And here, again, briefly, there are four major concepts that are being looked at. The first one, concept 2, is one of those concepts within the existing curbs. And basically, this is looking at bike lanes that are separated from the traffic. That could be painted distance that may be 3 to 4 feet or so on the road, or it could be raised items to help separate bikes from traffic, but all that would be within the existing curb. Concept 4 is expanding out within the right-of-way. And this concept calls for raised and separated bike lanes. There would be separate pedestrian walkway as well as bike lanes. In concept 4A, it's basically the same thing, but it's also allowing for the provision of some parking and bus pullovers, particularly in the section between East Ave and the cemetery. And finally, in option 6, it's basically the same as 4, thinking about raised and separated bike lanes, but on the north side, coming up from Barrett Street all the way up to East Ave, instead of a separate bike lane on that side, it would be a shared use path with pedestrians and bikes sharing that path. So those are 4 of the major concepts. There's a lot of detail that goes into this, but I'm not going to dwell on that. But the other thing that we are looking at is the intersection of East Ave and Colchester. And 3 major approaches that are under consideration right now. In number 2, it's a separated bike lane. And so as somebody traveling east on Colchester, there would be a pedestrian and bike crossing. So a light that would allow the bikes to cross, but completely out of the way of traffic. Under 2A, the option is to move the bike lane over in between the through traffic and the right turn. And then the bikes would have a separate signal to cross East Ave and rejoin the separated bike path in that scenario. And then the third scenario is a roundabout, which would maintain separate bike lanes and pedestrian walkways. There would be yields and islands where bike crossing and pedestrian crossing would take place. And all of these scenarios are trying to minimize the amount of conflict that can happen in between pedestrians, bikes, and cars. Now, there's criteria by which the committee is looking at this. These are some of the criteria. We're kind of looking at the benefits and the costs of all of these options. And I won't go through all of them here, but you can see that there's concerns about how we would approach this, and along with parking costs and right-of-way issues that have to be considered. So as I said in the beginning, this project is on a bit of a hold right now. I haven't been able to get any updates as to when things will start happening again. Jason, who's on the call, may be able to chime in a little bit more. I understand that the Regional Planning Commission has been working with some virtual meetings, and so it's possible that a virtual meeting to present in detail the concepts at a public meeting would be the next step. Certainly after that, there would be some refinement from the feedback and input that's given. There would be another meeting of the advisory committee. There would be a report drafted, then a city council presentation, and finally scoping for the project. So my recommendation is, if you are interested in finding more detail about the safety study, go to the Regional Planning Commission website, look up Colchester Avenue. You can find all the materials for the study, the presentations, the minutes, and a matrix that is showing, as we stand right now, where the pros and cons are about these different options that we're looking at. And so trying to keep it short, and that's all I have.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. It looks great, and I encourage people to go to the website. I think we'll keep moving unless are there burning questions.
So this is just Jason. Very briefly, yes, I was on actually a Burlington Walk Bike Council meeting earlier tonight as the neighborhood liaison, and yeah, Nicole kind of confirmed that they have a lot on their plate and they're kind of reshuffling it, and they're trying just to find appropriate venue to get public input, maybe an in-person meeting plus an additional online survey or something for people that can't meet in person, but that's their plan. But it's, yeah, still to be determined, as Dave said. And I thought he did a very good job of summarizing the current plans.
And Erhard had their hand raised as well, so I'm gonna put them in to speak.
Thanks, Dave. That was a really great presentation. It was hard to see, but on the roundabout scenario, it looked like it actually cut off a part of the old India House building. Is that, was I seeing that right?
We have not got to that level of detail. Obviously, there's some rights of way issue in the roundabout, both on the UVM property and the UVM Medical Center property as well. So at this point, we're at a sort of high level. I can't say whether the detailed design will show, moving beyond the right of way, the city right of way.
And follow-up question, I can't remember, is part of the scoping study looking at the intersection down at the bottom of the hill at Barrett Street, and is there an update on what some of the considerations are there? I mean, that's, we've had pedestrian death there, and it's a very challenging spot.
Yeah, in one of the first meetings at the advisory committee, I asked about that because it seems that all these intersections are really connected together along the, Colchester corridor. And the response I got was that there really is, things seem to be linked with the Winooski Bridge, and that seems to be in limbo. So I was not able to get any definitive questions about movement forward with the, Barrett Street, Riverside, Colchester intersection. I don't know if Jason or Jack Hanson or anybody else has any other information, but it's a good question that we should raise as the public meetings move forward on this study.
Yeah, didn't they say, Dave, I feel like I remember someone from the city saying that, we had done a scoping study and then there were options presented, but there was no funding secured to move forward. Am I remembering that correctly, Dave?
Right.
For that intersection.
Always ask about the funding. Funding comes from a lot of different places, but the bottom line is there is no forward movement at this moment.
They did do some work on the signalization at the, at the bottom of the hill on Barrett Street. Because for the last several years, we've had on Friday afternoons up until I think 4:30 or 5 o'clock, whenever the timing on that thing changes, we've had cars back up almost all the way to Bayberry sometimes, because people come in from South Burlington and it's horrible. You get all the pollution from the exhaust, and you can't get out of the neighborhood. It's also a safety issue if there were ever an emergency down here, because literally it's wall-to-wall cars from beyond my house, often all the way to Mayberry from that intersection, and it just does not flush out. So far this summer, it's been better, and that may be because fewer people are out and about because of COVID. But the last few years, it's been pretty bad. And so I just wanted to, since you and Jason are both on that committee, and obviously Jack and Zoraya too, just want to provide you that feedback that it causes real problems in our little neighborhood.
And Zoraya has a question followed by Jason.
Yeah, and mine's just a quick question. Hannah, I don't know if you have the ability to send all of the participants links, but just in case people didn't get it, that may be a good thing to share.
Yeah, we're starting an email, like a monthly email. So we'll start collecting information. And then if you want to be included on that email and receive it, you can reach out to any of the steering committee members. We'll add you to the list and we'll be kind of sending out any information and presentations. So thank you. And now, Jason, you can talk.
Thanks. I just wanted to chime in on a couple of items that have been mentioned. But before that, Dave, great job. Thanks for the update on the presentation. And you on the Ward 1 and 8 NPA should all feel very comfortable that you're well represented. Dave's been a great asset on the committee, super thoughtful and thorough. So it's great to have him on it. With regard to Colchester Ave and Barrett Street, I think it's been stated, but just wanted to confirm that any sort of planning work there has been completed from a previous scoping study. The same is true at the other end of the corridor at the Pearl Prospect intersection. So there are 2 completed planning studies for that. And so those are, in the city's hopper as, ready to move forward, at which time they have the capacity to do so. And as already stated, a lot of that depends on funding, but also just staff bandwidth. I mean, they can only move forward so many projects at once, but this is indeed the nature of planning to complete those planning processes so that you have projects to move forward when the time is right and you can do so. And then there was another question with regard to the roundabout impacts at India House. As of right now, the roundabout alternative is looking to kind of shift the intersection to the west. So that I can't say with 100% certainty, but as of right now, it looks like it would largely avoid the India House corner. It would impact the, let's see if I can get my directionality right. This is like the southwest corner where the former Department of Health building is, that corner. It would cut that corner off to try to square up the intersection and remove that angle that East Ave comes into the intersection. So just wanted to chime in and add those.
Okay, I really would like to move on. Thank you so much for that, Dave. You did do a great job. So we do still have 2 more people for our meeting. We are always a little too ambitious, I think, when we put our agenda together. But we have Rob from DPW, who will give us a very brief presentation. I know that this has been at city council meetings, it's online. I think it was in our NPA today, or not NPA, the Front Porch Forum. I feel like there was something about it. So we are getting lots of information, which is great. So is he with us?
We have
Hey,
Rob.
Karen. Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for having us. I'll jump into it. It's really good to see everybody. I know this is not a usual way to come together, but we definitely appreciate you having us, giving us the time. Karen is right. If you check your Front Porch Forums yesterday, there's a pretty big overview of what we have in line for this year. We did present it to City Council, so the information is out there. I know you folks probably have some core interests. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. I'm going to really run quickly through the presentation. I'll probably skip over quite a bit. But for some of the really specific things that I know you folks are truly concerned about, we'll focus on that. Happy to respond to a couple questions that were arisen during the prior presentation, but if we have time, we can get to those. I'll share my screen right now. And I do want to let you know my colleague Olivia DeReese, an engineer, one of the new to DPW engineers, is also on the call. She'll be able to speak to a couple projects that she's managing. But let me just let you guys know, we did start our construction season. It's been ongoing now for a couple weeks. Trying to pull up my presentation here. You know, one of the things I won't focus on too heavily here, I do want you to know that we were mindful of the kind of public health and the risk management. That is always important to construction, but I think it's taken on an extra level of importance during the pandemic. So we factored a couple things into our contract, a couple things into protocols. We want you folks to know we're very mindful of that. And anytime we're interacting with the public, we're interacting in close quarters where, you know, our protocols kind of increase significantly. So be mindful of that. And, you know, we appreciate the trust you folks have placed in us to do this good work for you in the right of way. I'm going to keep just skipping over stuff since we're short on time. Obviously, we're here to talk about a couple guiding plans that have really laid the groundwork for the type of work we do. We do core asset infrastructure, paving, sidewalks, water mains, and then some of the real kind of old but vital infrastructure at our wastewater treatment plants and around that distribution network. I know sidewalks are a hot topic in the city, and certainly at this ward. We came to you folks a couple times last year, heard a lot of good feedback that really helped lay the foundation for our approach this year. Thanks to the mayor, thanks to city council for some additional funding in 2019 that's kind of funded the approach this year to do more short runs of sidewalks. We will probably be tripling, maybe even close to quadrupling the normal amount of sidewalks we do this year. We've kind of hit that mark the last few years. What's a little different this year is, again, based on that feedback, we have quite a bit of short run repairs, much of which focused in wards 1 and 8. I'm going to show you guys a list in a moment of what some of that's going to look like. Some of this is likely to kind of bleed into next spring. Not a lot. I don't believe a lot of the ward 1 and 8 work will, but just like folks, be mindful of weather and any unforeseen delays, such as pandemic-related shutdowns, which we don't anticipate at this time. But certainly there's a lot that we haven't anticipated with slightly delayed. Some more big news that I think you folks may be interested in knowing is that we'll be conducting a new sidewalk assessment later this year of all 130 miles of our sidewalk network. We did this about 5 years ago, helped really lay the foundation for the approach we took with much of the long run replacement. And we'll be doing that again this year since we're roughly at the 5-6 year mark. And so more news to come on that later. Here's a list of our long run contracts. You folks may know that we kind of split our sidewalk work. Long runs, we typically contract out to contractors who have much more equipment and a much more capacity. Then we handle a lot of the shorter runs. And in this case, this year, a lot of the really short runs we'll be handling. What you're looking at right now is the city council approved long run contract list. First project highlighted here, currently underway on Colchester Ave. The sidewalk reconstruction list for our short runs, you can see here, there are segments on these following streets. Some of these streets, it's one segment. Some streets, it's multiple segments. They're as short as about 10 linear feet, give or take. Some of this work can shift as, you know, when we show up to a location, maybe we expand a little bit, maybe we contract a little bit, and hopefully we get around as quickly as possible, given weather, given any other things that can disrupt a short Vermont construction season. I'm going to leave this list up for about 5 seconds, but certainly happy to distribute this presentation. This is all available on our construction portal as well, which I'll have a link for at the end. And again, just be mindful, schedules can shift. We don't have a delineated schedule per se on all of these short runs at the moment, but I did want to share with you the names of the streets that we'll hopefully be getting to mostly in 2020. We do have a couple side path reconstruction projects in Ward 1 and 8, one of which is underway, the other of which you'll hear more about shortly. If Olivia is on, maybe she can give 5 seconds on each project just to give everybody a little bit of a background.
Yep. As Rob's presented here, each of the scopes for each of the projects, so I'll let you read those. But as Rob said, the Colchester Avenue side path is underway. They're completing this project in 3 different segments. So right now they're working on the segment from East Avenue to the hospital driveway. Probably by the end of next week, they'll be pouring concrete, if not at least prepping for pouring concrete, getting that run of sidewalk in, and then they'll start on the next segment. So as they're going through this work, they're detouring pedestrians to the other side of the road using existing crosswalks and street lights. So that's how they're kind of managing pedestrian traffic. That'll be the same case for each of the next segments. This project will continue through July and August, and our anticipated completion date is the end of August. We had originally planned to have this completed by August 25th, I believe, which is a day or two before UVM move-in. We were delayed because of COVID. We were delayed about a month. We started mid-May. We were typically start these types of things mid-April. So the contractor's really pushing to meet that date. If not, if they can't, then we will certainly do some outreach and keep everybody posted. Next, for the Mansfield Avenue side path, this is currently still in design. We're working our way into final design. We had originally anticipated to get this out to construction by this summer. However, we did experience some delays due to COVID. We also received some news that there would be some utility work happening in the vicinity of the side path, and that utility work, some new utility infrastructure is actually going to be placed directly under the side path. So for that reason, we are pushing this project off until next summer. The last thing we want to do is go in, tear up a new side path, and put it back. So so we've moved the schedule around for that. But as I said, this still is in design. We held a public meeting in December in which we discussed the conceptual plans. We had a good, productive meeting. We will be holding another public meeting this summer. I'm thinking probably late July or early August to discuss the revised preliminary plans, going into final plans, make sure everybody's happy before we move into final plans. And so I will be warning that meeting via email, Facebook, Front Porch Forum. It's a little difficult right now to get mailers and go to door to door right now, obviously because of COVID restrictions, but we're utilizing every channel we have to warn that meeting. If anybody trying to think of the best way, you can shoot me your email. I do have an ongoing email list. Folks who had attended the first public meeting provided their email and they received notifications in regards to the project. So you can reach out to me. My information's on the project website. If you want to provide your email, I will also be warning the email, warning the meeting via that email list. So
thanks a lot, Olivia.
Yep.
Thanks, and we're happy to take questions if there is time at the end on any of these projects. Paving, we do have quite a bit of. Sorry.
Oh, Jason has his hand raised. But anyway, okay, go ahead.
Oh, gotcha. We do have quite a bit of paving planned this year, roughly in line with the normal average. A couple COVID requirements possibly led to some, less than the normal number of bids we may have received. And we also had to delay a couple paving projects, including Prospect, only the North to Pearl segment. These projects were coordinated with water projects, some of which would normally require some service disruptions or the need to enter residents' houses. We did not think this was the time to take those kinds of projects on, and happy to talk more about that as needed. You can see quite a bit of our paving list for this year is going to take place nearby, adjacent, in wards 1 or 8. It includes our mill and fill streets. It includes some extensive pavement patching. And I don't think there's anything in 1 and 8, but certainly folks are driving all over the city. We did experience, again, probably the third year in a row, significant winter-related kind of pavement disruptions. So we've added those to the list as well. I'm just going to quickly go through our water work. We've delayed much of our water main work this year. We're at the tail end of that bonding money. It's critical work. Again, service disruptions, the need to enter residents' houses. We thought it was prudent to at least delay that for most of this year, maybe the entire year, as the time just didn't feel right to kind of take that challenge on with residents needing, higher degrees of sanitation and not wanting to have contractors enter houses. That's the water main work. We also have the Clean Water Resiliency Plan. At its heart was a kind of reinvestment and an upgrade of our 3 wastewater treatment plants, our extensive network of sewer pipes, stormwater pipes, combined pipes, as well as pump stations. Many of these projects have been advanced through the state revolving fund, which is why they didn't happen sooner, but they're happening in a way that kind of reduces the ratepayer burden based kind of on the way the state administers these projects. So it's a good thing. We did, in that sense, we did have an issue at the wastewater treatment plant about 2 weeks ago. The disinfection upgrade that will be happening at all 3 plants does address that. It likely would have prevented most or all of the event that happened. Happy to answer more questions about that. Those bids actually just came back last week, and we're pleased to kind of move forward on most of these projects. Sewer pipe relining, again, that is being delayed at least most of this year just due to service disruptions. Not the kind of thing we want to kind of throw at the city residents right now. Green stormwater work is planned around the city. I don't believe anything adjacent to you folks at this time, but certainly in the Old North End, and more information will be coming out about that soon. We have transportation improvements planned. I think critical to this era of climate resiliency that we're trying to continue to build in Burlington. We have a quick build bump out at Colchester and Chase to make pedestrian movement a little bit shorter. A couple of the South Winooski elements that the City Council voted on somewhat recently. One is scheduled for fall 2020. That's the South Winooski Ave lane reconfiguration. The North Winooski Avenue parking management plan and other associated kind of parts of that are delayed due to 2021. A couple quick builds are being converted to permanent. You can see those on the screen. And again, always happy to answer more questions now or offline. And you've just heard about some of the Colchester and East Ave intersection scoping. The next milestone is going to be a virtual public meeting. Nicole Loesch, who kind of is our senior transportation planner, primary liaison, just wanted me to make sure to piggyback on that presentation before. Just wanted to let you know about that. East Ave traffic calming, I was asked to address this. You heard about this a few months ago. I believe at the last update where I think it was Director Spencer was here at the Ward 1 and 8 NPA. We've hired a consultant just recently to update our traffic calming program. This is the first reevaluation, I think, in 10 or 15 years of the program. The main goal here, and I think some of this might have been communicated a few months ago, but I do want to underscore, the main goal here is to be much more data-driven with our approach to how streets are prioritized. The old process before, I think, the volume of requests came in that the way they do now, and rightfully so, everybody wants a safer street, safer neighborhood. The old process really created a lengthy queue, essentially first in, first out, which is why our updates on East Ave haven't gotten you yet to the place where you're hearing these real-time updates on movement. We have continued to anticipate and still do having the guide available for presentation at the Public Works Commission later in summer. You folks may have interest in that. We are currently evaluating, as you can see here, the entire queue of requests to determine how the changes are going to impact their status. Luckily, East Ave, we do have data on East Ave. We had additional efforts to collect data for East Ave, additional efforts to collect data for the crosswalk request at East Ave and Billadieu. Due to the volumes not being representative right now with UVM out, we have not done some more of those data collection efforts. We didn't think that was a representative sample. Those will be underway again, and we expect to have a firmer update for the streets in queue, such as East Ave, by the time we go to the Public Works Commission with our update on the traffic calming program. I'm going to kind of end this presentation in about 90 seconds, and in the event you have more questions about that, certainly if there's time, happy to answer those. City Hall Park still being worked on between us and Parks, likely to finish up in October. Slight delay. Again, everything was delayed mostly at the beginning of this year due to COVID. We have an exciting initiative, the curbside consolidated collection. Your front porch forums have had more information about that. We're excited to host a June 25th meeting. Certainly happy to answer questions offline. We think climate change, environmental sustainability, hopefully affordability, and infrastructure impacts are all going to be positively impacted potentially by this work, but we need to hear more from the public. So this is an effort to kind of consolidate our recycling, our trash, obviously the new compostable law that's coming into play. Hopefully there's a way to consolidate this, make this easier for residents. More information online, certainly more information at a meeting to come. I'm going to end this here. We really thank you for your time and happy to stick around if you have that.
So I see one question in the queue from Jason, so they should be able to speak. And then Carol's after.
And we will post this. I believe we have a way to post all this on our NPA website, correct, Jonathan and Hannah? Yes, got it. Yeah, because we are running behind. So
Make sure to send this to you.
Quickly, questions, please, and then we do want one more person is up. So Jason was one to ask a question. Where is he?
Jason should be all set to speak. I don't know where they are though.
Maybe I'll stop my sharing here.
It's tricky, very tricky.
So because Jason's not speaking, I think we should go on to Carol's question.
Please.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just, very limited question. Just when the lining is going to happen, painting the lines for Colchester Avenue for the new bike lane on the right-hand side as you go up the hill.
Great question. We just had that contract, I believe it was approved at City Council, and I think we expect our long line contract painters in town next week, maybe the week after, and certainly we can share that news on Front Porch Forum. Sometimes it leads to a little bit of a kind of on-street gridlock, you know, in a way, but I believe it's in the very short term that we expect our long line contractor in town.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we do have water people coming next month to discuss DPW with water. So our last person tonight, and I'm sorry that we are delayed, people are so enthusiastic. It is about the Riverside Avenue project. Do we have?
I'm putting them in now.
Thank you.
So Mark, Lori, and yeah, I think they're joining us.
Okay, welcome. Let's see them.
Can you get Steve as well?
Yeah, they weren't on before, but I think they are now. So they should all be set. Okay, all of you should be ready to go.
Okay, I don't see Mark yet.
Mark's not on the call. It's not showing.
Mark's not on the call. Well, I will do his presentation for him. Hang on one second, let me find it. Hi, Steve. We're missing Mark. You're muted.
I'll be on the lookout if Mark joins.
I just saw him right there.
He's right there.
I think here.
Okay.
Am I with you all?
Yeah.
Yes, but you got to turn on your video, Mark.
Yeah, what happened was I was disconnected during the hookup. Hold on here a second. Okay, that should do it. Are we there now?
Yeah.
Yep.
No? Okay.
No, you are. And now if you press the share screen option at the bottom next to participants, you'll be able to bring up your presentation.
Okay, well, Steve, I won't have to share screen. It's really talking for a while here. Hold on. Photo screen, Dropbox, no. Actually, Steve will need to do this. I will not.
Can I share my screen, Mark? Did you want to introduce the project though?
Yeah, let me do that really quickly. First of all, thank you, everyone, for allowing us to present even at this late hour. And if you have questions, what we'll do is we'll leave contact information at the end for people to get in contact with us. We have three parts here. We're going to make it very brief. There'll be an initial introduction. There'll be a slideshow by Steve, and then there'll be some questions and input from you folks, which is really the focus of our presentation tonight. Quick history here. I own a piece of land, 237 Riverside Avenue, between the car wash and the sewage treatment facility. I purchased the land back in 2000. I was a director of the Community Health Center of Burlington. Then they were trying to house homeless male adolescents. We purchased the building, and over the next few years, Spectrum and Youth and Family Services ran a homeless youth program from the site. That arrangement ended in 2006, and since then, the focus has been residential rentals. Last year, myself and a current partner, James DeFord, decided to explore the potential for a multi-family building on the site that incorporates affordability and the highest energy efficiency standards in a micro housing model that will provide high quality, affordable accommodations for Burlington's workforce. We really hope, because we see that the Salmon Hole, the Winooski Valley Park District Trail, and improved access to UVM offer a unique opportunity to integrate and improve the quality of life for the Riverside community. So to that end, we've been working with the City of Burlington zoning staff, Burlington Electric, Gossman Bach Architects, SW Cole Civil Engineers. Whoop, did I lose everything here? I did. Civil engineers. Oh my goodness. And others to build our team and develop our concept. We realize that the best outcomes take a bit longer and involve more communication and community collaboration. So we're here tonight to introduce community members to the project and to listen to feedback prior to any formal proposal presentations. In closing, our goals are affordability, energy efficiency, net zero, decarbonized building, integrating and improving the quality of the Riverside community, particularly access to the Salmon Hole and the Winooski Valley Park District Trail, and also to improve the trail up to UVM. Those are our goals. With that, I'd like to shoot this over to Steve, and Steve can give you a quick and dirty slideshow and design. Maybe not so quick. We'll see how he's doing.
I'll do it quickly. I know we're running late, so I'll share my screen here. Let's hope this works. Is that working?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So this project, this is a really exciting project, and I think the whole idea of having sort of labor force affordable housing that's carbon neutral. We're going to try to approach net zero if we can. The only thing that would limit us from getting there is simply the amount of area that we have for solar panels and PVs. But we really see this project as a way to take an underutilized site and just really add some vibrancy and build on this connection between Winooski and Burlington, and build on the bike path and the pedestrian travel between the two. And it's a really exciting project. Just to give you a really quick overview, we're looking at, these are all micro unit apartments, about 325 square feet each. So they're essentially studio apartments. We're looking at commercial at the first level, and then on the upper levels, we'd have the residential units. Again, if this is too quick, you can ask questions, or I can go back later. The site itself is on Riverside. It is sandwiched between the car wash and the wastewater treatment plant. So this is that site here. You can see just to the left, or to the west of the site, is the wastewater treatment plant. And we really want to build on a thing that makes this site really special is the connectivity between Winooski, Burlington, UVM, and all the residential districts that are around. And right now, we really feel like this site and this area is underutilized on that side of Riverside Ave. So through the Salmon Run or the apartments across the street, there is already a sort of informal path between UVM and Riverside Avenue. And so the old Trinity campus, and we've been talking to the neighbors there about how to formalize this and actually build on this connection between the two. So just to have one more connection, so you don't have to walk all the way around to South Prospect or North Prospect to get up to this to UVM and over to the campus. The site itself there is a 275-foot setback from the river. So the buildable area is up on the street itself. To the left here, you can see the treatment plant. To the right, you can see the car wash. Everything that's not in the orange area, that's going to stay natural. And we can really see a connection from this site, from the bike path that could lead to the river walk behind the site, to the north of the site. This is a quick sketch of the building here. Again, it's going to be commercial on the lower level, what we're thinking about, and then residential for 3 stories above it. All the parking, we'd have limited commercial on the street level. There'd be limited parking for the commercial, but any of the parking that's for the residents above, we're seeing that as below the site, so it wouldn't be visible from Riverside Ave. This is a quick model we've done just so you can visualize this. We're breaking the scale of the building and actually making what we're calling these canyons between the structures, sort of to highlight sort of that connection between the Winooski River and Riverside Avenue, and to break down the scale too. So this is looking toward the west on Riverside. And this is back from the other end on the north side of the building. The natural grade is well suited for the parking below the structure. Whoop, sorry. And so this is also a view from the north side looking back towards the building. So we're really seeing those canyons as a connection, a visual connection, an open connection from the sidewalk to the Winooski River beyond, and then a connection between the apartments up above. This gives another option of the site, again, breaking down the scale, and the car wash to the right, the water treatment plant to the left. We really see a way of this building really animating the street here and being a real contributor to the community here and sort of enlivening the street on this edge. And that's really a big part of this building too, not only being going for carbon neutral and net zero, but also being a real community member and giving a place for people to live on Riverside Avenue. And so this is the current site, and just saying I'm only showing these just so that right now we really see this as an underutilized site, and it can be so much more. And that, to me, that's what's so exciting about this project, that it, just the potential of what it could be, and bringing I love the idea of being affordable and labor force housing, and it could be for a young professional, it could be for anybody. So anyone who wants to live in Burlington and needs a smaller space, it could offer just so many. It's just in a great spot between Burlington and Winooski. playing on the bike or being able to use the bike path and the walking path. We're in terms of construction start date, this is our initial meeting with you guys. So we're really just putting this out there for discussion and expecting some comments. And just wanted the neighborhood plan, the NPA on board and part of this process from the earliest, from the onset of the project. So I don't know if that was too much of too quick to go through it, but just given the late hour, I just wanted to go through that pretty quickly. So if that was too quick, I can go back to any images that you want to, but it gives you a really quick overview of what we're looking at.
Thank you.
So-
This is very important for Ward 1, and it is late. We've actually lost about 12 participants in the meeting, but people who did want to stay, and if there's anyone that wants to ask questions, I think now's the time.
I see 2 in the queue. We're gonna do Sophie and then Erhard.
Okay, so can I jump in just for a quick second here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to say that in presenting this tonight, what we're really hoping to do is to get some feedback. The goal for this project is to create the highest and best use for this property, and when you walk the woods behind this property, the connection to the river is pretty exceptional. And it would be amazing to see this part of Burlington become vibrant and actually connected to that river. So with that, we'd really like to get feedback on the concept, but also the first floor, we're currently talking about maybe a daycare, maybe commercial, but also interested in what people in the neighborhood think would be appropriate and needed for that part of the community.
Okay, so Sophie, you're on to ask a question. Then we have Erhard and then followed by Kathy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a great building. It smells over there. Is that why the workers have to live over there? Because it smells so badly. It really smells from the plant.
So Mark has been in contact with the sewage treatment plant quite a bit, and they are actually potentially going to be closing down the digester at that plant. They also have said that they have the ability to mitigate odors there. Depending on the way the wind's blowing, depending on the day. We all remember tortilla flats and bluebird barbecue. But that is something that the city is open to working with.
Okay, thank you, Sophie, for that question. And Erhard?
Thanks, Karen. Hi, Mark. Hey, Laurie. Long
Hey,
time no
Erhard.
see. Good to see you guys. It's pretty ambitious. And it looks like on paper, it looks like a great project. I'll just say, I worked many years ago to actually help the Parks District create the Riverwalk and know what its potential is. It's not quite what it was once, I think, but I know it's hopefully gonna get the dilapidated areas are gonna get reopened at some point. I'm not sure what the Parks District is doing, but you guys, I think clearly understand the potential for Riverside Avenue. I would just be, given the slides and the instability of the grounds on that side of Riverside, which I'm sure you've investigated and know about all, pretty much all along that corridor. I would just, my God, what a risk. I just don't, I don't know how it's possible to build that large a structure on a bank that, has got a lot of fill, has seen a history of slides in various areas. And I would just worry about that. But certainly have ambitious goals and laudable goals. And I think always the idea when the Neighborhood Planning Assembly focused a lot on Riverside Avenue back in the latter half of the 80s and throughout the 90s when we were like planning a redesign of the avenue and the shared bike pedestrian path, etc. You know, we always wanted to see more development there. Although I will say the idea was never to develop that side of the avenue. It was ultimately, hopefully, to move development off that side of the avenue and concentrate it on the more stable side on the other side. So I'll stop there. But those are my comments and my thoughts off the cuff.
We can't hear you. Lori, we can't hear you. No,
Nope.
you're muted. There you go. Nope.
You may
Well,
be
I can comment. Lori, we can't hear you, so I'll jump in. So we've done an extensive amount of study with geotechnical engineers and some foundation recommendations. And this site is actually, it's kind of peculiar given that what you're talking about, the history with landslides and elsewhere along this corridor. But this site actually, once you get down to about 10 feet, it really starts to have a gentle slope back to the river. And it's even next to it, the car wash directly next to it, that has a lot more fill than this site, than the site we have here. So yes, we understand the history of this site, but feel very confident that that this is going to work out just fine. It's going to be challenging to get out of the ground simply because of some of the constraints on Riverside Avenue, just in terms of traffic and staging area and things like that. And as we move forward, we're going to engage a CM early so that we can keep everyone, the community, informed about how we're going to deal with all of these issues.
I have something to add.
Okay, so we are really running late. There's a lot of interest in this. If we could quickly take the next two questions and then
Yeah.
it sounds like you have a long way to go before you can really present to
Mark,
us.
did you say you had something to add on that before I go to the next question?
I did.
Yeah, you can go for it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to follow up on Earhart's question. We have done some geotechnical and geothermal bores on the property. What's really interesting about that site is it's a gentle walk down to the river after you get to the back of the house. There's a Clovis Indian site. There's a state archaeology site back there, about 150 feet from the road. And it is basically where the Clovis Indians camped out when they decided to fish the salmon hole. It's still preserved. The erosion along this particular part of the river next to the sewer treatment facility, and the sewer treatment facility is nothing like the area west. And I just wanted to say that so that you understand that we have similar concerns, and we're all over this like white on rice, and we're still going ahead. So, thank you.
So we have Kathy and Pat in the queue for questions, and I think after them we're gonna call the questions, and I see that they put up their contact information on the screen, so I'll just direct everyone to reach out to them there. But Kathy, you're set to speak.
Can you guys hear me now, or am I still muted?
No, we can hear you now, Lori.
We can hear you.
Oh, I just wanted to add one thing quickly for Earhart and anybody else, which is that we would be thrilled anytime to take a walk on the site with anybody that would be interested. And I think that you will see that for the north side or the west side of the road there, this is really a unique site, and it does not have the same slide slopes that are both on either sides of this property. So I'd be thrilled to take a walk with anybody that would like to.
Okay, so Kathy, you want to ask your question?
Yes, I just wanted to ask about affordability because in this city, I don't find anything affordable. And people keep coming and building new buildings and talking about affordability, and they aren't affordable for young people. So that's my question.
Well,
Do you have a price on the units? And how many units?
the goal is to have somewhere between 70 and 80 units in the building. And they would be all inclusive somewhere below $1,000 a month.
Okay, thank you. So next question.
Pat, you should be set to ask your question now.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now, right?
Yes.
This feels rushed and it feels late and I'm feeling brain dead and I'm wondering if we can reschedule you all to come back to another NPA very soon and give you a lot more time to talk about all this.
We'd be thrilled to do that.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll say is that we see this as just, obviously we ran out of time, you guys ran out of time. Our contact information is up on the screen. We really want to have this be an engaged process. Anybody that has questions, please contact us and we'd be delighted to come back as soon as you're willing to have us.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah, I think we just expected, I think we had you down for maybe 10 minutes, which was certainly not enough. A lot of people had a lot more to say than we thought they did. Thank you for coming, everybody. I know we did lose quite a few of you. I hope you're having a good night's sleep and we'll all have our dinner and go to bed too. Thank you, everybody that came to the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah, for your work on this.
Good to see you again, Mark.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Sydney. Thanks.
Good to see you, Erhard.
Thank you, Sydney.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good, Karen.
Bye.